So, picture this. You're chilling in Naples, Italy, eating the best pizza of your life with the beautiful bay spread out before you. But what if I told you that right under your feet lies one of the most dangerous supervolcanoes on the planet? And what if I told you it's showing some pretty worrying signs of waking up? Today we're diving deep into the story of Campi Flegrei, Italy's hidden giant. Is it about to blow? Let's find out. First off, what even is Campi Flegrei? The name literally means burning fields in Italian, which is a pretty epic name, right? But unlike a classic cone-shaped volcano like Vesuvius just next door, Campi Flegrei is what's called a caldera. Imagine a volcano that had such a massive eruption in the past that it literally blew its top off and collapsed in on itself, leaving a giant sunken crater. We're talking huge, about 13 kilometers, or 8 miles across. The city of Pozzuoli and a bunch of other towns are literally built inside this ancient crater, so this isn't your typical mountain spewing lava. Instead, it's a massive underground system of magma. Think of it like a giant, angry pot of boiling rock simmering just a few kilometers beneath the surface. Over the centuries, this pot has been breathing. The ground literally rises and falls as the pressure from the magma and gases below ebbs and flows. This phenomenon is called bradyseism, and it's what makes Campi Flegrei so unique and, frankly, a bit terrifying. To really get why people are so concerned now, we need to look back in time. Campi Flegrei has had 2 monster eruptions in its history. The biggest one was around 39,000 years ago. This was a super-colossal event, one of the largest eruptions in European history. It was so massive that it spewed ash across the entire continent, potentially triggering a volcanic winter that affected the climate globally. Some scientists even think it might have played a role in the extinction of the Neanderthals. Imagine an eruption so powerful, it changes the course of human history. That's the kind of power we're dealing with. Then about 15,000 years ago, there was another huge eruption, which formed the caldera we see today. Since then, things have been relatively calm, with dozens of smaller eruptions. The most recent one was in 1538. It wasn't a super eruption, but it was still big enough to create a whole new mountain, Monte Nuovo, in just a week. The ground rose by several meters, there were tons of earthquakes, and then boom, an 8-day eruption that buried a whole village. After that, Campi Flegrei went back to sleep for about 400 years. That brings us to the 20th century. Starting in the 1950s, the breathing started again. Between 1982 and 1984, things got really intense. The ground in the town of Pozzuoli rose by a whopping 1.8 meters, that's almost 6 feet. Imagine your street corner slowly being lifted up to the height of a doorway. The city was hit by thousands of earthquakes. The government had to evacuate 30,000 people because they were genuinely afraid a 1538-style eruption was about to happen. But then, just as suddenly as it started, it stopped. The ground started to slowly sink again, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. But here's the kicker. Since 2005, the ground has been rising again. It's not as fast as it was in the 80s, but it's been consistent. And along with the uplift, the number of small earthquakes has been steadily increasing. In 2023, the region was rocked by thousands of tremors, including the strongest one in 40 years. People living there are feeling the ground shake daily. This constant seismic activity and ground swelling have put scientists and residents on high alert. So what's causing all this? Why is the volcano waking up now? Scientists have a couple of main theories. One idea is that fresh magma is pushing its way up into the underground system, increasing the pressure like pumping more air into a tire. Another theory is that it's more about the volatile gases trapped in the rock. As the magma heats the groundwater, it creates a massive amount of steam, building up pressure from within. It could also be a combination of both. The big question everyone wants answered is, will it erupt? And if so, how bad will it be? A recent study published in Nature Communications has got everyone talking. Scientists studied the patterns of earthquakes and ground uplift and concluded that the volcano's crust is becoming weaker and more stretched. Think of it like bending a plastic ruler back and forth. At first it's flexible, but if you keep doing it, it gets weaker and eventually snaps. The researchers suggest that the crust at Campi Flegrei might be getting closer to its breaking point. This doesn't automatically mean a massive eruption is imminent. It just means the volcano is in a more fragile state. The pressure doesn't have to be as high as it was in the past to cause a rupture. This is what scientists call a critical state. The system is primed. A small disturbance could potentially trigger a chain reaction. But let's be clear. Predicting volcanic eruptions is incredibly difficult. No scientist can say for sure, it will erupt on this date. They work with probabilities. What they can say is that the risk has increased. The volcano is showing more signs of unrest now than at any point since the mid-80s. The Italian authorities are taking this very seriously. They've raised the alert level and are constantly updating their emergency plans for the 500,000 people who live in the immediate danger zone, the red zone. So what would an eruption look like? Let's run through the scenarios. The best-case scenario is that this is just another phase of Bradyseism, like in the 80s, and things will eventually calm down without an eruption. The ground will stop rising, the earthquakes will fade away, and Campi Flegrei will go back to its slumber. This is what everyone is hoping for. A more likely, but still manageable scenario is a small eruption, similar to the one in 1538. This would be incredibly disruptive and dangerous for the people living right on top of the eruption site, but it wouldn't be a global catastrophe. It would involve evacuations, ashfall, and the creation of a new volcanic cone, but it would be localized. Then there's the worst-case scenario, a massive caldera-forming eruption like the one 39,000 years ago. This is extremely unlikely. The conditions required for such an event are monumental, and scientists say there's currently no sign that enough magma has accumulated for a super-eruption. But if it did happen, it would be apocalyptic. The city of Naples would be buried. Ash would blot out the sun over Europe, causing temperatures to plummet and crops to fail worldwide. It would be a civilization-altering event. Again, this is the stuff of disaster movies and is considered a very, very low-probability event right now. The most pressing concern for authorities is the potential for a medium-sized eruption. An evacuation of 500,000 people is a logistical nightmare. How do you move that many people with all their belongings out of a densely populated area in a short amount of time, potentially with roads blocked by earthquakes or panic? That's the puzzle that emergency planners are working on right now. So, to wrap it all up, is Italy's hidden supervolcano about to explode? The honest answer is maybe, but probably not in the catastrophic way you might be imagining. The volcano is undeniably in a state of unrest. It's more active and fragile than it has been in decades, and the risk of a small to medium-sized eruption has increased. But the signs do not point to an imminent super-eruption that would end the world as we know it. Scientists are watching Campi Flegrei 24/7, using every tool they have to understand what's happening beneath the surface. For the hundreds of thousands of people living in the burning fields, it's a tense waiting game. A life lived with the constant reminder of the immense power sleeping just below. It's a fascinating and sobering look at the dynamic planet we live on. Thanks so much for watching. It's a pretty wild topic, right? If you found this interesting, do me a huge favor and hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the amazing and sometimes scary world of science. Let me know in the comments what you think, or if there are any other crazy geological spots you want me to cover. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next video.